This is All Talk Radio. You're listening to 1680 The Crow.
Good afternoon, I'm David Nava, and this is your news and sports update to noon. The Independent Investigations Office of BC announced they are investigating the death of a police officer in Langley. According to the statement published by the IIO, RCMP were trying to locate a man in distress at an indoor gun range yesterday afternoon. The man was identified as an off-duty member of the Surrey Police Service, which appears to die from serious self-inflicted injuries. Reports confirmed by the Surrey Police media officer point that the officer was subject of an investigation related to breach of trust and was suspended last August. A fire in a North Vancouver residence broke out early morning. Victor Goucher with the details.
It's crazy. It really is crazy.
RCMP are investigating the cause of a fire at a North Vancouver home that began around 3 a.m. Thursday morning. It is believed that the fire has taken the lives of 2 individuals. Some reports are claiming the victims were a man and a woman, while others claim it was a woman and a child. The police have been unable to confirm their identities.
Yeah, it's completely startled me. Everybody's asking me if I knew those persons online as well. All my friends are worried,
The cause of the fire is still unknown at this time, but as concerned neighbors pass by, the investigation continues. Victor Gaucher, 1680, The Crow.
Victor Gaucher joins us now with more on this tragedy. Victor, what happened and what do we know?
So, yes, David, around 3 a.m. this morning, North Vancouver Fire and Rescue Services were notified of a fire here at the 4000 block of Delbrook Avenue. Emergency services were able to contain the fire relatively quickly, allowing several residents to flee the premises. Unfortunately, 2 bodies were pulled from the rubble later that day. It's a bit confusing. We've had those conflicted reports. We don't know if it was a man and a woman or a woman and a child. Police are still investigating just who the victims were.
So, Victor, can you tell us what is the environment like?
So the environment's a bit interesting. The police were just flying a drone, just trying to figure out what caused this fire. It's mostly media here. The sidewalk and the street is still open, so cars are able to go through. We've had some people walking their dogs. It's a bit of a quiet environment right here, right now, and you can definitely smell the burnt rubble from the house. Back to you, David.
Thank you, Victor. TechCo Limited, one of the biggest Canadian mining companies, has been fined with millions of dollars. The BC Ministry of Environment imposed 3 administrative penalties, resulting in more than $16 million in penalties. The mining company has been found guilty of failing to have a water treatment facility to reduce the contamination to East Kootenays waterways. Some of the contaminants leaked into the rivers are selenium and nitrate. According to Health Canada, overexposure to selenium may cause hair loss, muscle weakness, and reduce brain function. On the other hand, the consumption of nitrate in drinking water can cause blood disorders and also can be toxic to fish. Environment Canada issued a special weather statement for Metro Vancouver. Environment Canada says strong winds are expected through the early evening until midnight in the lower mainland. The gusts are expected to reach between 60 and 80 kilometers an hour, with Boundary Bay and Tsawwassen as the main areas affected. So far, BC Ferries hasn't announced any cancellations or delays due to the weather conditions. A search and rescue unit from Burnaby just arrived to Turkey to help people affected by the earthquake. Shivani Joshi with the story.
The Burnaby Urban Search and Rescue Team, made up of 10 volunteer firefighters, are aiding in recovery efforts in Turkey. They are armed with medical and rescue equipment for their emergency operations. The volunteers took a 15-hour flight, which was organized by the Council of Turkey in Vancouver. The latest death toll from the 7.8 magnitude quake has exceeded 17,000. The team will be there for 1 week, returning on February 14th. They were previously dispatched to Nepal after the 7.6 magnitude quake in 2015. Shivani Joshi, 1680, The Crow.
Ontario Premier Doug Ford says a health deal with the federal government hasn't been signed yet, but talks are going well. Ford and Ontario Health Minister Sylvia Jones met today for about an hour at the provincial legislature with Intergovernmental Affairs Minister Dominique LeBlanc and Federal Health Minister Jean-Yves Duclos. After the meeting, Ford said the talks went well.
It was a very productive meeting. There's still a little bit of work to do. And again, I always stress this, we have to consult with all the premiers right across the country, but it was a very positive meeting.
The federal government presented an offer last Tuesday to the provinces and territories that includes $17 billion over 10 years added to the Canada Health Transfer. Quebec Premier François Legault is urging those affected by the tragedy in Laval to get the mental health care they need. 2 4-year-old children were killed and 6 other kids were injured when a bus crashed into a daycare yesterday morning. This is what Legault said when he and his wife visited the site today.
Of course, it's tough because we're talking about children. And there's nothing more important than children. Personally, most stress I can have in my life is to make sure my children are happy.
Health officials in Montreal say 2 of the injured children have been released from hospital. A 51-year-old transit driver has been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, attempted murder, and aggravated assault. Netflix Canada is rolling out its long-anticipated plans to crack down on password sharing. The streaming giant says it will begin notifying Canadian users today by email about limitations on who can access their account outside their household. Under the new rules, premium and standard account holders will be given the option to add extra members for $7.99 per month. For that price, premium high-definition 4K subscribers can add 2 members who don't live in their household. Standard subscribers who pay less per month can add 1 additional member for the same additional monthly fee. Basic and ad-supported plans will not be able to add more members. Netflix did not say when it will begin enforcing the new rules. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres is pressing the international community to provide money for Turkey and Syria and work on physical access for aid to earthquake-affected parts of Syria. Speaking at the United Nations headquarters, Guterres says the relief is starting to arrive to those devastated by the earthquake. It's worth noticing that the aid deliveries across Syria border have become a politically charged issue.
The first United Nations convoy crossed into northern Syria through the Bab al-Awa crossing. It included 6 trucks carrying shelter and other desperately needed relief supplies.
The death toll from this tragedy is near 20,000. At least 16,000 have died in Turkey, while at least 3,000 have been killed in Syria. The United States House has voted to condemn China over its balloon surveillance program. It's a rare and swift bipartisan rebuke of Beijing as questions mount about the craft the U.S. says was part of a vast aerial spy program. Melissa Dalton, the Assistant Defense Secretary of Homeland Defense, says the U.S. wanted to avoid any injuries or deaths from the debris field if the balloon were shot down over Alaska.
Ultimately, we were able to collect intelligence from the balloon. We are recovering its contents, and we sent a clear message to the PRC that activities such as this is unacceptable.
The balloon flew from Alaska to the Atlantic Ocean last week, passing through Canadian airspace along the way. The U.S. Congress is hearing today about the winter holiday meltdown at Southwest Airlines. The Dallas carrier says it's taking steps to avoid a repeat of the breakdown that led to nearly 17,000 canceled flights over the December holidays. ABC reporter Alex Stone reports what was wrong with the system.
In one cockpit message shown in images to ABC News from the Southwest meltdown, the airline asks pilots of a 737, quote, confirm who is operating this flight. Please send employee ID numbers to confirm, end quote. During that time, Southwest apparently had no idea where their crews were, who was flying planes, and was unable to contact pilots and flight attendants for days.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow.
Everything is changing to digital. Everything is online. People aren't just waiting for the 6 o'clock news anymore. People want their news right now. They want to be able to go onto their smartphone, onto the internet, and see the news that they want to see.
Vancouver is growing at, a really rapid rate, the Lower Mainland even, and with the tools that we're given here, we're able to cover all of that.
Welcome to BCIT Magazine. I'm Radhika Sikakane.
In the program, they really leave it up to you. I mean, the help is there when you need it, figuring out how to use the programs like Premiere, Audition, and figuring out how to use the cameras. But it's up to you to sort of experiment and figure out what you can do when you go out in the field.
They brought candles and flowers to remember the student who lost her life yesterday.
Theresa May says the international community condemns Moscow.
They really make sure that you know the basics and you are able to put out a quality product.
I'm Brady Tretnero.
And I'm Radhika Sikakane. Thank you for tuning in to BCIT Magazine.
This is sports on 1680 The Crow.
And now for your sports update. The Canucks will visit New York today to face Bo Horvat for the first time. The former Vancouver captain received a standing ovation on his first game as an Islander after scoring his first goal last Tuesday against the Seattle Kraken. Some of the Vancouver fans are already expecting that Horvat increases his season's goal total, scoring his 33rd goal of the season against the Canucks. While Vancouver's season seems to be over, ranking 26th in the standings, some of the players may have to run good shifts to prove their value ahead of the trade deadline. The Calgary Flames woke up to scary news after the team announced that defenseman Rasmus Andersson was hit by a car. Luckily, Andersson is doing well after he was taken to hospital while riding a scooter in Detroit yesterday. The NHL team didn't say how serious Andersson's injuries were, but said his recovery will be treated as day-to-day. The Flames will face the Red Wings in the Rock City 2 days afternoon. Today is the last day NBA teams are able to trade players to other teams. While it seemed that Kyrie Irving's move to Dallas on Monday was going to be the biggest story of the week, the Brooklyn Nets also got rid of Kevin Durant. In this shocker move, the Nets sent KD to the Phoenix Suns in exchange of 3 players, 4 first-round picks, and additional draft compensation. But seems like Durant isn't going to be the only big star that will find a new home today. Rumors are placing Russell Westbrook in the Utah Jazz. This move will allow the Lakers to reacquire D'Angelo Russell. Regarding the Toronto Raptors, media points out that the organization is wondering to make some negotiation with Gary Trent Jr., OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet, and Pascal Siakam. Pop superstar Rihanna will perform at a Super Bowl halftime show this Sunday. ABC reporter Jason Nathanson with more.
Rihanna says expect a high-energy show.
You're gonna see on Sunday. From the time it starts, it just never ends.
She didn't take questions from the press Thursday, but in a moderated discussion about Sunday's Super Bowl halftime show, Rihanna revealed
the set list was the biggest challenge.
Packing 17 years of music into 13 minutes, and she says it's also been a physical challenge since she hasn't performed in 7 years and recently had a baby. She also revealed her Caribbean culture will be represented.
Representing for immigrants, representing for my country, Barbados, representing for black women everywhere.
Jason Nathanson, ABC News, Hollywood.
Now for your weather update. Currently it's 6 degrees. We may have some sun sneaking through around 2 p.m. and temperatures will remain steady throughout the day. As we said earlier, Environment Canada issued a strong winds warning, so be aware of 3 branches that may fall during the day. Those were your news and sports update to noon. This is David Nava, and you are listening to 1680 The Crow.
Stay tuned for more on BCIT's 1680 The Crow. Now it's time for the comment.
Young adults need to be appropriately taught in high school about banking, inflation, saving, and the public school systems are not setting people up for success. Without the basic skills of handling money, many young people do not know how to navigate the banking system, causing them to be unprepared for retirement. The situation in Canada is also putting individuals in a tougher spot with not being able to save, as most of their paychecks are going to the cost of living. The goal of saving seems so unrealistic because many weren't taught it. Unfortunately, I'm not the only person feeling this way. Most British Columbians are not expecting to retire due to the current state of the economy. In a study by Fidelity Investments Canada, nearly 62% of BC residents feel nervous about retirement due to the high cost of living, and almost half of those people who are planning their retirement or currently living as retired people cannot have a comfortable retirement as they envision for themselves. In another survey by BMO, they estimated an average Canadian will need $1.7 million in savings to retire. The fact that some people cannot retire because of the expense of living is frustrating. The idea that my friends and I have been talking about waiting for our parents to pass to receive a house or money to actually be able to make ends meet and live comfortably is quite upsetting. Now, if we had received more instruction or training to prepare us for adult financial obligations in school, some of us wouldn't be in a dire condition we are today. Kara Collins, 1680 The Crow.
It's extremely important for people to stay healthy and to stay active as much as possible.
This is 1680 The Crow, and you're listening to our feature presentation.
Hello, and welcome back to today's episode of
The Crow Chronicles.
I'm Alicia Nolasco.
And I'm Jeremy Lee,
your host. So today we're really excited. Tell us why, Jeremy.
We are really excited today because we're talking about a shark story that took place 1905, actually, here in Vancouver, which is honestly kind of scary, but also really cool. Don't worry, it was 100 years ago, so...
It's fine. It's fine.
It was in 1905.
Yeah. We got to talk to marine biologist expert Juan Jose, who works in UBC.
Yeah.
And we also got to speak to
Bradley Miller. He's a historian, and both of them give us like a lot of really good info on sharks and what people thought of them back then, as well as how the environment was back then compared to now. And honestly, let's just dive right into the story.
Let's just dive right in.
Yeah. It's July 5th, 1905. It's around 6:30 p.m. From the shores of Falls Creek, Ed Dusenberry, a man who owned several small leisure boats at the dock, is passively watching a few boys playing at the beach. Among them is 8-year-old Harry Menzies. He's playing in the shallows of the creek. Why was this young boy playing without supervision in Falls Creek at night, you might ask? Historian Bradley Miller explains.
Kids at that point in history often had a lot of freedom to roam around the city, to swim, to play in the woods. I've both read a lot and heard a lot from people from previous generations who talk about what we would now consider, or right now consider, the unbelievable amount of freedom that kids had. So I'm not surprised at all that a kid was swimming in Falls Creek at 6 a.m.
Seeing a young boy playing in the inlet might not have been odd, but seeing something else in the water, swimming towards that boy, would have definitely raised some concerns. At first, Ed Dusenberry thinks it's another person coming in from the deeper water. They are heading straight for Harry, though. Then he sees a fin. Calling out to the boy to get out of the water, Ed grabs a pike and runs toward the shoreline. In a matter of seconds, an 11-foot, 4-inch, 1,100-pound shark is seen coming up out of the water. But why? Why did this shark go for a boy near the beach, where there were often people around? Dr. Juan Jose Oliva reminds us that sharks are creatures of instinct and habit.
Remember that sharks have a system, a unique system called the ampullae or Lorenzini, which is a sensory organ, like to detect electric fields around, right? And they like to test, right? Sharks like to test first before deciding whether or not they need to eat that kind of prey. It might be well indicated that that shark was there probably scavenging, eating that animal, and it happened to be that the boy was in the right place at the right time where the shark also was scavenging, and maybe he smelled it.
Harry is on the beach. He's unharmed, but the shark is now a little out of its depth. The water is too shallow for it to make a quick getaway.
What happened with the shark that they cannot see very well in the water, right? The sight is not good, so they depend in the olfactory system and the electric fields around them to try to look for food, right? So it's important. And for any shark, I think there is an opportunistic interaction to get a bite from another animal. They will do it, right?
Ed has by now gotten into the water and is wrestling, pike in hand, with the shark. He has it hooked by its tail and is trying to pull it ashore. But this only angers the shark, which is now showing its teeth. Ed is staring into the wide-open shark's mouth of, as the Vancouver World put it, the genuine Hawaiian man-eating variety. If this started out as an unprovoked attack, it has now become an unprovoked attack. A lot of people would freeze in their tracks if they saw something as menacing as an angry 1,000-pound shark staring them in the face. But Ed knows not to lose his head, or his arm. Pulling his pike from the shark's tail, Ed lunges it into the shark's throat. But the shark continues to fight back. Ed doesn't know what to do now. It's too late to force the shark away. It's far too angry for that. But he also can't pull it to shore. All he can do is just wrestle with the shark for a while. But the cold is starting to set in. Ed is waist deep in water and shark blood, drenched to his skin. But the adrenaline is still there. For now, anyway. But let's not forget little Harry on shore. The alarm is raised, and soon Ed and his pike are reinforced by the strong arms of nearby mill workers, neighbors, and fishermen. They try again to drag the animal ashore, but this time the shark is only cut while the grip of the pike is loosened. It would be no good to drag the pike out of the shark's mouth, leaving it to get away, or worse, to attack. So they waited. Let's set the scene again. It's July of 1905. It's around 8 p.m. 5 or 6 people are wrestling with a shark in the shallows of Falls Creek. The shark is bleeding from its wounds. The pike is still lodged in its throat. But it's taking everyone to hold the animal still. It's been an hour and a half since the shark was spotted and attacked. But now, it was finally giving way to its wounds. The battle finally ends. Ed and his companions could now take a better look at the creature. But then they realized something.
The average length is 4.8 meters or 16 feet.
This immense animal wasn't even fully grown, and yet it was so large that they had to wait till morning before they could take it ashore. And even then, it took 20 people to drag it up out of the water. It was quite a sight to see. This gave Ed an idea. He set up a tent and started charging 10 cents a person to see the huge animal up close, which was a lot of money back then. And so Ed Dusenberry is named in our history as a shark killer and a man who's smart with his money. I don't know which is better.
Wow. I really like that story. I feel like we could see more sharks around Vancouver, maybe?
Eventually. That'd be cool. Though also kind of scary.
But don't worry, it was in 1905, guys.
Well, honestly though, like seriously speaking here, you guys, I think that it's not really common to see sharks here, and I got the assignment to look into depth.
Yeah, I gave her that assignment. I am the boss. Not really, no.
We have both the assignment of talking to both of our amazing guests about this story, and I'm just gonna go.
You know, we're gonna go in depth. We're gonna go in depth with facts about sharks and whatnot.
Yeah, and whatnot.
You know.
Let's go.
Let's just go in depth.
It is interesting to think that more than 100 years ago, in what we know as Falls Creek, a shark attack like this was seen. According to marine biologist Juan Jose Alava, the sharks are not known to attack people.
We don't hear that much about shark attacks here in BC because it's cold water, and the species that usually attack humans are basically in tropical, subtropical, or kind of cold water, like the great white shark, tiger shark, bull sharks, blue shark, the oceanic tick sharks.
This species is known as the blunt-nosed six-gilled shark, and is not known for attacking people unless provoked. At least, no such incidents have been reported. According to the International Shark Attack File, there has only been one deliberate attack of this species since the 1500s, and they seem to be quite calm around the presence of divers. But let's talk more about this shark. As humans, we are terrified of large sharks like the one we saw in the Jaw movie. However, this species is nothing like what we think. And since we have talked about its behavior, historian Bradley Milley says that many years ago, fear of sharks was not the public knowledge.
People knew very little about the behavior of sharks and their relationships with people. There was a widespread belief that sharks were in fact not dangerous at all to people, any species. In the early 20th century, there was a well-known American industrialist that offered some huge amount of money to anyone who could demonstrate that a shark attack had ever occurred.
In that note, Ed Dusenberry would not look like a hero today, since conserving shark is part of the ecological movements we have and we are involved nowadays.
There was a series of famous shark attacks during the First World War off the East Coast in the United States, and some historians credit those attacks with changing American public opinion on sharks and shark attacks, and actually raising awareness of the fact that sharks could sometimes be dangerous to people. And so sharks went from something that most people, even swimming in the ocean where we are so vulnerable, didn't know about or think about, to being a kind of folk devil of U.S. society. And in the wake of those attacks, the U.S. Navy, the U.S. Coast Guard, thousands of ordinary citizens undertook a massive killing campaign of every shark that they could find within reach of the northern east coast of the United States.
Falls Creek is a short, narrow inlet in the heart of Vancouver, separating downtown and West End neighborhoods from the rest of the city. Back in the day, Falls Creek was 5 times the present size and included a large tidal mudflat. This ecological rich site was blanketed with thick eelgrass, plentiful clambets, and countless songbirds. And the real question is, how did a shark like the six gills get into Falls Creek?
Today, we might expect in the future, because there is changing ocean, there is ocean warming going on, the temperature of the ocean is changing, and that might allow conditions for some shark species to conquer new habitat areas, like BC waters. Also, BC waters are cold waters. That's the reason why we can see some great white shark in the offshore environment, around, offshore to the west coast of Vancouver Island. So it might be not surprising that in the future, because of the changing ocean condition, because of climate change, maybe there is going to be new niches, ecological niches or new habitat that can provide the condition for sharks to thrive, to survive in our waters.
The blonde-nosed six-gill shark is found in a latitudinal range between 6 degrees north and 48 degrees south in the Atlantic, Indian, and Pacific Oceans. But it has been seen off the coast of North and South America, from North Carolina to Argentina and Alaska to Chile. That explains a shark like this could be found near Falls Creek. The truth, though, is that this inlet preserves a lot of marine species, and sometimes we can see a number of different animals, and it is not surprising to see sharks like this.
It might be that the conditions of Falls Creek are improving and there is food availability in the sediment. In the case of water, actually might serve as a stopover, as an area in which they can rest a little bit, look for some food, and then they will continue going. But I understand there is a population that remain around here, right, of gray whales that remain around the BC waters, and it seems that Falls Creek might offer some kind of habitat suitability for gray whales in this case, right, to look for some refugee or some kind of area in which they can find food or escape from predator.
Okay, so that was like a lot of really good information. Like before we even like started working on this episode, I like my entire view of like this story, like we found some articles online and we read them and we're like, oh yeah, so it's a shark monster attack and stuff like that. And my entire view of this whole story has like changed. Like it's gone completely 180. I don't know about you, Alicia, but yeah, well, it's crazy.
It has, as a matter of fact. I feel like both Juan and Bradley gave us a lot of great information. One of the topics that I want to definitely bring up is how Bradley said that in the World War I, the view of the sharks was completely different. It has come up, I mean, how we see sharks right now, it's such a stereotype compared of like 100 years ago when people had no idea that they were supposed to be eating people or whatsoever. So that put us like in perspective, at least for me.
And it's really cool also because the articles that we found were all written past World War I, so it makes so much more sense that people are talking about sharks in this way. Because I was thinking, hey, why if back then people didn't see sharks as monsters that constantly attack people and as like a thing to fear in the ocean, then why were they writing articles like this? But then you look at it and you're like, oh, this article was actually written in 1925, which is like 20 years later, and like that's 5-6 years after World War I ends. And so if you look at that, then it like just really puts everything into perspective. And honestly, I think Juan and Bradley, they I know they've never met before, but they should start their own podcast just because they both know and they geek out about sharks so much. But they should start their own podcast.
They should, as a matter of fact. Yeah, and then the same page, speaking of like our incredible guests, Juan did mention something about seeing more sharks, or well, honestly, not seeing more sharks in Falls Creek, but in general in like the BC waters. And it's that he obviously mentioned, taking care of our oceans, making our earth a bit more blue and green, but the whole idea of like keeping a clean environment says that he said, like, as he brought up, we could see more animals, not only sharks, but whales or who knows. We have animals coming around here. Yeah. We just don't see them as often or so close to the shore.
Yeah, because killing sharks is, as Juan pointed out, that it's become illegal to kill sharks. And so Bradley said in World War I there was a mass killing of sharks. The Navy, the Army, and a lot of civilians just started killing sharks because there was this stereotype that sharks would just attack you no matter what. So and now the population of sharks is coming back, so the chances of us seeing sharks again in Falls Creek has actually risen, I think. But don't worry, like I said before, it's not 1905.
It's not 1905. Falls Creek, as I said as well, has changed a lot, and I don't think we mind be seeing like this animals as close, but we do want to keep like our waters clean. So we do have this type of animals, swimming around our clean oceans. And I mean, Juan also mentioned that Falls Creek has changed in a good way. I mean, it was very polluted back then, and now has come. I mean, a lot of
we gotta. Like Vancouver's pretty good at keeping things, I mean, we're trying to keep things clean. So hopefully we'll do better. But
as much as we want to keep talking about sharks, I think it's time to say goodbye to this episode. But I guess we'll see you guys on our next episode.
On the Crow Chronicles.
Again, Alicia Nolasco
and Jeremy Lee. And we will see you guys, or you'll hear us or whoever next time.
Please follow us on Instagram, Twitter, at BCIT The Crow.